now listening to the Film Monsters podcast with Nate and Ray.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Film Monsters podcast, where you can see Ray and I's beautiful faces again. And I'm Nate.
And I'm Ray, and this is Kermit.
It's Kermit! So, Ray, are you excited about today's episode?
So pumped.
What a lot of people know after doing our interview with John, we've already done this interview.
It was like, it has nothing to do with the fact that we already did the interview.
Yes, nothing at all. So Ray and I got the opportunity to speak to the Addams Family film group. We got to talk to Toby Poser and John Addams about their most recent film, Hellbender, and we kind of talked a little bit about their history in film, but what a wonderful conversation.
It was phenomenal. I feel like every time we have these, like I walk away, I already come into the interview enjoying the film, but I walk away having greater insight of the filming. I'm like, oh, that's freaking cool. I'm excited to now revisit those films with the new insights that we gain.
And similarly to talking to John about his film, you can just see the passion. Like it just, in every way they speak about, even like the little details, like you'll hear them talk about a story about picking a location to film one day, and just hearing those stories are so cool. And it's like what you said, Ray, it makes me appreciate the film even more.
Also, I'm excited for people to hear this interview. Just as a little teaser, you get to hear about a little prank they pulled on their daughter.
Yes, which was wonderful. But they were so great. They had a wonderful time, and they want to come back on to talk about their next movie whenever that is released, and I will be very excited for that.
Very excited for sure.
So without further ado, here's John and Toby. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Film Monsters podcast. I am Nate.
And I'm Ray.
And we are joined by two special guests today. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hey, I'm Toby.
And I'm John, and we're 25% and 25% of the Addams family.
And that's so awesome, and we're so happy to have you guys on. We talked a little bit about it just a minute ago, but I first found out about you guys through Hellbender because I'm a huge fan of Shudder. I feel like they're such amazing people that really give creators a great platform to showcase their material. And I remember watching you guys' movie the first time and just thinking, like, this is such a unique, strange, abstract idea that's executed in a way that, like, it felt only like something you could come up with in your brain. So seeing it on screen was so cool. And so getting to reach out to you guys and talk about this, I'm really excited about. So thank you so much for coming on, guys.
Thank you, Nate. Thanks, Ray. Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah, it's fun. I remember for me, we did an episode when we were just starting out the podcast about movies that involve music, like not scores, but actual like performance. And Nate brought up Hellbender, and Nate and I are both music guys, so we love weird music. So when Nate kind of mentioned the concept of Hellbender, I'm like, sludgy, like metal, and I'm in. I'm so in.
Sludgy metal. I'm in too. That sounds fucking great.
It sounds like something I want to eat.
Yes. So I kind of want to start off the interview, and I'm sure you guys get this question all the time, but this is clearly a family affair. So I know that you guys all have your personal backgrounds, but like, did this whole idea of making movies as a family, like, is that what got you into wanting to do this, or did you all just have an individual passion for film as a whole before that idea stemmed?
No, we all the four of us wanted to make a movie together. We had run out of money. We were living in California. We kind of run out of money, run out of it looked like employment and stuff like that. And the kids had been talking about being actresses. Toby was an actress and felt like she wanted more roles and stuff like that. I had just been on a kind of reality TV show that had gotten canceled. It sounds like life was not going well, but it was going great. We just weren't like having any success. And so we all together were like, do you guys want to make a movie? You know, it's kind of, I don't even remember whose idea it was, but we all were like, yeah, let's try to make a movie together. And we did. We made a movie. We lived in a trailer and traveled around the US and made a movie and learned how to edit, learned how to score. I don't know whether we learned how to act, but we tried. And then we fell in love with it.
That's such an awesome story to hear, because it's like I was saying before we started, like I can really feel that in the movies you guys make. And I guess I want to transition in talking about that family element. Is you guys are typically all credited as directors when you make the film. So like when I was in film school, when I would direct a project, telling someone like, hey, you did that wrong or you screwed that up can be a difficult thing. So when you guys have a vision for a film and you're like shooting a scene, is there times where like Toby, like you'll say, I really don't like the way that scene looked, but John's like, I think that's fine. And you guys have to kind of come together collectively and say, we need to do that again, or we can keep it.
All the time, which is why we're super democratic. Like we just do it 3 different ways. And if Lulu's around, our older daughter who plays Amber in Hellbender, then she'll we might do it 4 different ways. Because we have the time and luxury to do it until we feel like we get it right. And then once we're editing the right way, whatever serves the story best will kind of rise to the top.
Yeah, I've noticed that before too in my own projects, is like you can do something 6 or 7 ways, and when you're behind that computer screen doing the editing element, you just feel what is going to be the right take. I 100% understand that. And with Hellbender, I think it's interesting because I was reading online, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that it says a lot of the dialogue is improvised.
Yeah, that's with all of our movies.
That's super cool. And is that just like, so when you guys come together to make these ideas, do you come up with a concept and then you just say, okay, we're going to go into it with this idea and just see how these things play out scene by scene?
A lot of the time, yeah, exactly that. I mean, sometimes we know something very specific is important for the story, or something we've done or will be doing. So we might come in with a template that we want to try to at least jump off from. We rarely stick to it, because once we're doing it, we realize, oh, this is how it's meant to be done, or it will present itself during the doing of it, like what the scene is actually about. So again, it's kind of super, it's a real collaboration, and it's what's fun about working that way is it feels very alive. You know, you're kind of making those discoveries while it's happening, is fun. And it always, sometimes it takes the film in a completely different direction. And it's just like, and especially when the people, like, let's say I'm writing something for Zelda, she's going to know much better how good something will sound out of her mouth than I will. So she'll always chew it up and then spit it out the way she wants to, and it's always better.
That's such a cool thing. And Ray and I actually were talking about it before we started recording with you, which is interesting. Hellbender has so much lore to it. I feel like that whether there's no like exposition dump of this is and this is this, but we were both talking about how like between the foods that you eat and like the scenes with like the key coming through the hand and all that, is that things that you're just like, wow, that'd look cool if it was in the movie? Or like, do you have a couple of those ideas beforehand and you say, how can I fit that piece together in the overall film?
Both. It was really important to us that we had our own myth. And since we have time, we come up with our myths intellectually. Toby comes up with a lot of the intellectual stuff. I think visually, mythology is important to me. So, and for Zelda too, Zelda's really visual. And so those things, again, like Toby kind of said before, they come organically. Like the pine cones, I remember we were trying to figure out what they eat. We talked a lot about what they ate. They were going to eat babies and stuff. Like, there was a lot of different shit that they were going to eat. And finally, it came down to a choice about cinematography and also how completely fucking awesome it would be if they ate something that we all looked at and found no value in it. And for them, it was complete nutritional value. And then cinematography wise, it looked so gorgeous. So I remember the day we shot that, all 3 of us went out to the woods. It was like, go out to the woods. I'll meet you, everybody. Let's just meet back up in a half an hour, grab a bunch of shit that you think will look good on a plate. And everybody brought a bunch of crap back and we put it back on a plate, and we took stuff off. We put stuff on, and and the things that look beautiful together ended up on that plate.
And it worked
That's
really well.
amazing.
It works really well because in contrast later on in the film, when you guys are throwing a finger on the plate, it really kind of messes it up and makes it look really disgusting, which is great. No, that's so cool how that comes about just naturally. And I noticed online it said you guys shot this during COVID. So did you find challenges on, because I know most of it was a family affair, but all of the other actors that were in the film, was it kind of difficult to find people that were willing to work in that environment when that was going on? Because was it more in the peak of COVID, or like where things were getting a little looser?
I was lucky because the scene that has the most people, which is the prologue with the women hanging the OG kind of Hellbender, that was, I think, 2 days before the lockdown.
Oh,
So
wow.
right before everyone realized, oh, this is some serious shit. And it was before we had to ask anyone, wear a mask or don't be next to each other. We was just very lucky. What was also lucky was we had a different idea of what this story was going to be before COVID happened. And in the end, we had to really temper that story and kind of boil it down to what it ended up being, which was a much more intimate tale than it was going to be. And that was a good thing. I mean, COVID isn't good, but the fact that we did not make this big production was good, because I don't think it would have had the soul that the movie we made had. And so it just kind of brought us down to our roots. It was intimate and felt very personal. And yeah, then we traveled around. So with Lulu, it's funny with Lulu. So Lulu was living in the Northwest, and since Zelda was doing remote schooling, we took off that year to school in an RV. Once again, we hit the road in an RV. And we got to work with her, and we tried to social distance with her in some of the shooting, which was pretty funny. Like the scene at the pool where Zelda's character Izzy moves the chair away from her.
Yeah.
So people. Zelda's like, none of us can. That was improvised in the moment, and it was so.
Because Zelda was super hardcore. I'm not getting COVID. And so like when Lulu pulled up her chair next to her and we were filming, Zelda was like, nope. And so I had to follow her, it's like really funny. And the two of them said those lines just out of, they just said those lines and they were amazing.
Which works perfectly. Yeah, it works perfectly with the concept that she's sick, that she's not able to get near people.
Well, without a doubt. And I mean, COVID was on our minds. So, I mean, it seeped into the storyline. I mean, there was no doubt. We just didn't want to make a COVID movie because COVID will be gone one day and nobody wants to look back on it. You know what I mean? Right. And so we didn't want to get pinned down to that time,
Something that I wanted to bring up, talking about like the lore behind the film, and I'm actually mind blown that so much was improvised. A lot of those scenes where you're teaching Izzy about, nature and how to blend herbs and is that like research that you did? Is that something that you have grown up with? Like it's just so impressive because it felt so genuine. Like if you didn't tell me that was a movie, I'd be like, oh, that's gospel. Like that's what you do when you're in the wilderness.
That's so cool. Yeah. You just made my day. Week. No, that was stuff that we live in a very rural area. We're surrounded by woods, and so nature is a big part of our everyday reality. Death and rebirth and all the seasons. I mean, we're super aware of all that stuff. So in the case of those scenes, there was some thought put behind it, and it was kind of a real joyful process trying to think of what their witchcraft was based on. And I always like to say that we just kind of reached into our very primitive 5-year-old minds, because children have there's nothing getting in the way of their imagination, and they can play with anything, and so I thought, well, let's just kind of really make this witchcraft very rudimentary and raw, and let's use nature itself. And then there's a little science, like with spores that mushrooms give off. There was there's logic behind all of the witchcraft, but it's pretty simple childlike logic, and it was fun as hell.
That's so cool. That's so cool because, you think of witchcraft, you think, oh, evil witchcraft, but you're putting such innocent spin to it that makes it so fascinating.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you.
Yeah, we definitely didn't want to make, well, we didn't want to make a witch movie. Like we try, that's why we've invented something called Hellbender, because it was kind of like we love witch movies, nothing against it, but it was like when we talked about it, we all agreed that to make a witch movie, you're locked down to so many tropes in a sense. Pointy hats, black stuff, warts, just lots of things that we were like, let's be kind of witches, but let's make them different so that they can have their own mythology. And then we can follow our own set of rules. And that was fun. That was really fun. And Toby was great at that. And the other thing that was important to us was that, like, their prayer, or that they always say, like, summer, winter eats fall, fall eats summer, summer eats spring. It's like, we wanted to show that, like, in Western philosophy or Western thinking, you always move one direction. And we wanted to show that they moved the other direction. Like, their whole direction goes way back to their crazy magic DNA, because that's what this story was about. It was about, like, this young kid reaching back into her genealogy for her power. And so we wanted people to kind of have, like, that fun. It's kind of like a koan. I know I sound like I'm getting heady, but
no.
No.
But it's like, there was something fun, and people seem to enjoy that. And we really enjoyed that. And it was cool.
The whole mythology thing is something that's fun. Like, in all of our films, we kind of feel like something's missing if we're not devising our own mythology. It's like a really fun goal in pretty much all of our films.
That's such an awesome thing. And I wanted to say, John, I thought it was interesting what you were saying, because, like, one of the things I really took away, obviously, I watched The Deeper You Dig, and what I think is interesting about you guys' films is they're also rooted in family. And so you were talking about this family in Hellbender that is, like, they're going backwards and looking at, the way things were. But at the end of the day, the film to me is like the cyclical nature of not wanting to be your parent, but somehow becoming your parent. So, like, I'm watching it and I'm like, you're having two themes of, like, okay, they want to go this direction, but they're also just moving the same way, which I think is cool, because you guys are clearly a close family. But between those two films that I've seen, you're exploring something so much deeper in connection when it comes to a mother and daughter, especially in those two films.
I'm so glad that you're grooving on that stuff. I mean, we're so glad, because that's exactly, look, we're a family. It's best to make art about things and it's also best, I think, to make art about things you really feel a close connection to. So family, I mean, we just love our family. We love being a family. And that's what brings the horror into it, is like, luckily, our little family unit's one that is happy, and we do get along. And that's why we can explore horror, because to think about that getting split up, or the terrible things that could happen to it, and that's horror. And so that's kind of what we explore in movies. In The Deeper You Dig, we explore the mother having a child ripped away from her, and what kind of depths would she go to reestablish that connection. And that's what was so fun about that. In Hellbender, it's like, a completely different kind of exploration of the daughter and the mother, and them splitting apart, and how will they, like, keep that love open between each other, even though it's so dangerous for them. Like, ultimately, there's no way that they can keep that love, because something terrible is coming, or they have to figure it out philosophically, which is really crazy. Now we got another movie that we just made called Where the Devil Roams. That's, like, I would say that, well, at least in my feeling, but always fresh art is always really, it's like the coup de grace of our family trilogy. Like, we think of these as a trilogy, and the latest one that we did is definitely the kind of the crown on the trilogy. And all four of us play really heavy roles in it. And it is about a family that is basically really splitting to pieces. And because our family is splitting to pieces. Our two girls are growing up into women. They're going to go have their own families. One lives in Korea now. One lives in New York City. Toby and I are off doing our thing. And it's like, this is a family splitting up, a family that really loves each other. And psychologically, it's really fun and cinematically to make a movie about it. And in fact, Zelda wrote the latest movie about it.
Oh, cool.
So it's cool. So there you go. Family.
There's a couple of things that, on the topic of family, I just thought it was really fascinating that, like Nate was mentioning, you have the character of the mother desperately not wanting Izzy to grow up to be like her mother, because she describes her mother as a monster. So she's showing Izzy witchcraft through a beautiful lens, you know, the mixture of herbs and how this could be a beautiful thing in your relationship with nature. But then you go back to the cyclical thing where Izzy, for all intents and purposes, is morphing more into the figure of her mother, which was more evil, which did more evil things according to the mother. I thought that was super fascinating because it does speak to familial relationships of how we don't want to be like our parents, but we end up being more like them than we think about. That was one thing that stood out. And the other thing that stood out to me that I wanted to point out, we had the opportunity to interview a different director a couple of weeks ago, and we touched base on originality in a genre that feels like has been beaten to death. And the fact that you're still able to make a witchcraft movie that, for all intents and purposes, we've had witchcraft movies since the beginning. You know, you have a Haxan, you know, a long time ago, but you're still taking an original spin on a concept that has been done so much. It's really cool to see that horror is alive and well and still has original stories to tell.
That's
Oh, thank you.
huge compliment.
Thank you so much. Last year in particular, I think, was a great year for horror. There were so much 2022. I don't know, maybe coming out of COVID, people were like, I am just like busting with energy. I have got to make something great. And they did. I thought the last year was just like bonkers good.
The fact
we
Ty
watched
West
a movie last night called Bone Woman. Did you see that?
It's
No, I
on my
want to see that.
list.
I want to see that.
That's fucking original. And
The fact Ty West put out 2 movies in the same year that are just so incredible. It's the creativity is insane. But I think what you were speaking on earlier, when it comes from a personal place and there's something there, you're going to feel that freshness and that originality, because people that are putting that in, like the director we spoke to before, wrote his film on a very personal place. And I feel like when you're doing that, those films will come across as original.
Who is the director? Can I ask?
Yeah, we talked to Jonathan Cortas, who made My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To, which is also on Shudder.
Oh, I love that film. Oh my
It's
God,
so good.
great film.
And then that was what we pointed out, that he made a vampire movie with heart.
Yes.
So it's like, now we have a witchcraft movie that has a familial beating heart too.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God, that film. And the family, that was a real intimate film as well. Oh my God, that was a good one.
Yeah, he's such a great guy. But I did want to mention, because John, you talked about it a couple of times, I'm a huge cinematography nerd. And I wanted to ask, like, because I've seen 2 of your films and the cinematography in both is breathtaking. I think that you do such a great job of really focusing on things in the frame that are all important to the story, that moves the narrative along. And what I wanted to ask is, do you do a lot of storyboarding, or do you feel like a lot of it comes natural to when you guys are filming, that you're just like, this will look good in this spot?
We picture, I think, Zelda does a lot of cinematography too. Both of us picture a lot of things in our brains, but no storyboarding. But I mean, what's really nice is we don't have a crew. We don't have a schedule. So what we do have is a camera, and then we have either an interior environment like this house or outside. And so we spend a lot of time setting the camera up, though, or sitting around waiting, or like we like to shoot in flat light. So if the sun's out, we all wait.
Yeah.
And so basically, it's more about, this is going to again sound a little cheesy, but it really feels more like what wants to be filmed reveals itself, and we wait for it. And we're very lucky that we're allowed the time to wait to film what wants to be filmed.
And it works in your advantage. I was thinking today, because I was watching a couple of scenes again before we started, but like in The Deeper You Dig and in Hellbender, some of the scenes that really like shoot out to me visually are like in Hellbender when they're in that void area, and just the way the light is coming off their faces and how they're in this black emptiness. And then in The Deeper You Dig, Toby, when your character is doing that seance and just the way that light casts in, I feel like that's such a visually striking image of the face that, like, when I think of your movies, there's so many shots that come to mind, which is why I really wanted to talk about it, because it's clear that you guys do have the time and that you really focus on putting the best looking image that you can on the screen.
That's cool. You nailed 2 fun images. I believe one is an exterior image and the other one is interior image with a construction light. And again, that's like us having the time. We shot that scene with her doing the seance in a barn.
Mhm.
And we just have one little construction light with an 80
Wow.
watt bulb. And, you know, it was like the classic old, you know, thing. Does it look good here, straight or up? And as soon as we put it up, it was like, oh my God, now, oh my God, it's so great. And like, that was really fun. Like, you know, like I thought one of the fun cinematography scenes of like Hellbender is where the mother's having a dream and she looks and she sees her daughter disappear in like her daughter turns to dust, and it's like this. And what was cool about that was we were on a hike up in the Green Mountains or White Mountains of New Hampshire, and we always bring our camera, and we had black material that we always brought with us too, just in case nature was like, hey, film me. And we had our shit with us. We were on this hike and these beautiful clouds rolled in, a little snowstorm happened, and it was just like, oh my God, we didn't even know, like when we left for the hike, we didn't know what we were going to film. We just had the camera, and we had to come up with a story on the spot because nature looked so cool. And we were like, okay, what can we do? What can we do? Let's do this. It'll be a great metaphor for her losing her daughter. And that all happened while the snow was blowing and the wind was blowing and the sun was setting. And it looks, to me, so beautiful. And it's like, what's so fun about that is, in a sense, a really big production crew can't necessarily do that unless they spend the money to hire someone to do all that for them. So it's really neat to be able to like watch nature say, hey, I want to act today.
Hearing that,
like, great, we got our shit with us, quick.
Hearing those stories, that it's so cool to put that into the film because there's so many striking images, and knowing that came out of that scenario is so cool. But we do want to bring up, because like Ray and I said, we're huge music fans, how the music played into Hellbender, because the songs get stuck in my head consistently. I know it was pressed on vinyl recently, which we're both huge vinyl nerds, if you can't tell from Ray's backdrop, but the music just fits so perfectly in. And I love that in the movie where the mother and daughter's relationship is seemingly kind of all over the place, that music is what brings the two of them together. And it's such a beautiful part of the film. And so I wanted to know, like, did you always have the idea of music playing such a heavy role into this film, or is that something that just came along while you were making it?
Yeah, I mean, music is, in the case of Hellbender, actually music came before the film, because our band Hellbender, but the Izzy'S predated the film, and we actually had this song Black Sky that we started shooting a music video for. And it was during the shooting of that video that all this witchy theme just kept like smacking us in the face, you know, crooked trees and little fun ways that John was shooting it, and mistakes that ended up being like great discoveries that were used not as mistakes, but as you know, devices, dream devices within Hellbender. So yeah, music. And then John's always writing music, and we love singing on it. And yeah, music was.
Also, we have a lot of fun together as a band. And so one of the things, since you've seen The Deeper You Dig, you'll understand this. The Deeper You Dig's a pretty brutal movie. Like, it's not like, it's funny to us, like, but it's not very funny like to other people necessarily. It's pretty brutal, and kind of cold. And one of the things that we wanted to definitely do with our next movie is like, let's make sure that there's a huge dose of fun in it.
Yeah.
And so what better way to do that than to bring music into it? Because music is always fun. And music also impresses an emotion on the viewer. Like, so whatever they're watching, depending on what the music sounds like, it makes the viewer feel a certain way. So we just thought it was a great way to keep the movie fun. And plus the girls have a lot of fun together when we're doing music. So it just naturally kept that good, positive energy flowing through the movie. And not to talk too much, but within all those songs, they all have very important lyrics. So rather than have some big ass narrative dump or have to act for 10 minutes to explain something, we could put the point in a song, and in 30 seconds, the audience, if they're listening, gets to kind of catch up to where they need to be in the narrative.
That's so awesome.
There is a couple of things actually that I did notice about that now that you're mentioning. Two things that stood out to me. The first one is more of a visual thing, is like we said, we're big music nerds, and every time there were those dream sequences when the mother was having these like dream sequences, I almost got like a vibe of like a music video out of like a black metal song or something like that, which I thought was cool because it evoked, a really strong feeling, like you mentioned. But another thing that I noticed, and I don't know if this was done on purpose or it was just happenstance, throughout the movie, you see Izzy's character change. She goes from being this kind of shy girl to eventually embracing who she is. And every time they perform, her makeup evolves a little bit. She at first has only tears, then she has the star, and then by the end she's in full on like corpse paint with the crown, like she's fully embraced who she is. And I thought that was really fascinating, that her character is progressing through the lyrics and through the makeup while she performs. I thought that was really cool.
That's the truth. Yep.
Awesome. And that was important to us. Zelda and Toby did that makeup for that exact reason, so that by the end, Zelda's a queen of the tribe.
And the mothers too, like she starts out, I think, with like exes. I mean, she's just, and then she's like a bandit, and then in the end, she's got the arrow, and she's like basically going. Her wish to keep her daughter, away from her heritage is going south, and she herself has to reconcile that she comes from below as well.
Also, did you guys find that crown or did you make it? Because it is so cool.
It's so cool.
No, we made it. We love doing props. Props are so fun. Props also are a big part of cinematography. Like right now, we're making props for a movie that we don't even know what it's about yet.
That's awesome.
How fucking crazy our house is. It's like we got all these skeletons and masks and all this insane shit that's going around, and still I'm like, I wonder what this is gonna be about,
And to go back to the deeper you dig, I showed John this awesome full deer carcass. Well,
yeah,
with Hellbender too. We found that full deer carcass in Hellbender, but we use a lot of roadkill in the deeper you dig, and there's this deer carcass wedged up on a riverbank right now, and every day the eagles pick it more clean. So I think John's gonna go like collect it pretty soon.
I gotta go. Unfortunately, I gotta get it tonight. It's still a little. I'm gonna have to dismember it a little more because the eagles are only eating like through the rib cage and through the spine, but they're leaving like the head and the haunch. So it's like I'm gonna have to separate the two, grab that rib cage, and off I go. That's also for our next movie.
That is awesome. And speaking of your next movie, so I saw the announcement for it a few weeks ago, and I'm so excited about it. Do you guys want to talk a little bit or give a little bit of info or background as to what's going on in it? Because I've read the general premise and I was like, well, with how Hellbender was, I'm so excited to see what you come up with visually and because of the setting and the environment of that movie.
Oh yeah. So Where the Devil Roams takes place in the Great Depression. And it's about a family of sideshow performers on a very dusty, dying carnival circuit. And when the family falls to pieces, literally, it's up to their daughter, Eve, to pick up the pieces. And there's a great mythology that goes under it too. And it's about a family on the carnival circuit, and they have unfortunate compulsions.
And it's Bonnie and Clyde meets Frankenstein with the kind of beauty of the grapes of wrath.
I love that. I'm super excited, especially with you talking about like production elements. That has to be something you guys could have gotten really playful with production wise.
You got that right. And we always team up with our friend Trey Lindsay. He's like our fifth family member, and he does all of our special effects. And in this, look, we all read the reviews that we get, and we read the criticisms, and we read it all. And so we know where we might be lacking. We know where we might be growing. He does too. And I have to say that what Trey did with Where the Devil Roams, the stuff that he did to make our movie this beautiful poem I can't wait for people to see it for his artistry. He did some art that is just, to me, like kind of breathtaking. And I know it's our movie, so I should be careful talking about our own movie, but I'm talking about his art. Yeah. His art in the movie is exceptional.
That's really exciting. I'm super excited to see it. And I do want to talk about, correlated to your new movie, but also with Hellbender. obviously you guys have been working on your own movies for a really long time. We talked to John about this similarly. Did the partnership for Hellbender with Shudder just kind of happen in a really, like, to him, he was like, I didn't even realize it was happening, but they're such a cool platform that Ray and I both love a lot. And we think it's so cool that we found a lot of directors that we really adore on that platform. And so I feel like for you guys' movie, it works so perfectly. So I just wanted to kind of hear how that all came about.
Let's just say this. As the way you feel about Shudder being this really great company that puts up great movies, that's the way we feel about working with them.
Mm-hmm.
They have been so nice to us. They watched the movie, and I think the movie's like an hour and 27 minutes or something like that. And they called an hour and 27 minutes later and like, we would love to have it.
That's
And
awesome.
That means so much to someone who's just spent a year and a half making a movie, that somebody reaches out like that. And they talk to us like the family that we are. And they have been nothing but absolutely terrific people.
That's so cool to hear, because it's funny that you said that, because I felt the same way when I watched your movie the first time. I was like, have you seen this movie? Please watch it. And it was great to see Shudder promote it so heavily, because they get so many really unique films that it's cool that they've built such a huge base, and then with like their original programming and things. And so I just think it's fascinating to hear how those relationships come about, because it's giving these horror directors that may not ever get their films seen otherwise a big horror platform to be able to see those films.
It's an interesting stable too. It's like, what's great about Shudder is, what's it called when you like pick certain kinds of things for a certain kind of curate. It's curated, like it's curated just like so well, it's so caringly and so genuinely. It's like, they don't like, they're not going for quantity, they're not like, hey, let's just get every slasher in there that we can, or every emo dark movie or whatever. They like pick movies and they put them out, and they really are, they're great at what they do. It's really fun. Like, we love watching Shudder.
It's crazy. Like last year for Halloween, there were so many movies they put up. Like, I watched this movie from the early 80s called Soul Survivor. And I was like, I've never heard of this film. And it became one of my favorites when I watched it. I was like, this is so Carnival of Souls-esque. And they pull up so many amazing films that no one's ever heard of. And it's so cool that they're like bringing light to horror, and then doing things like horror noir and all these series that they're bringing light to some really important issues in horror. And I think that that's amazing. And I'm glad you guys get to be a part of it, because your movie fits perfectly with the films that are on that service.
They honor the depth of the horror community, because we've been in the horror community for a while now. One of the things that we've noticed immediately was like the depth of the kind of intellectual care that the horror community puts into what they watch. Like, they're all avid movie watchers, not just horror, like drama, everything. And I think Shudder really understands that. They really understand that there's a real, like, kind of intellectual depth to the community that they're trying to, they're honoring.
Also, I feel like with the horror community, like, I think I can speak for all of us, because we're all a bunch of horror nerds, is we are the most brutally honest community. We will tell you if we hated your movie.
That's true, but you'll also watch it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's very important, because that means that you care about art. And I generally, yes, of course, there's a a slice of the horror community that'll be like, this is bullshit. I like Friday the 13th, and that's
right.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, most of the horror community will watch everything and criticize it, like, kind of with an open mind and with like good criticism. Like, look, people have taken a shit on our movies too. I don't mind if someone takes a big shit on our movie, as long as they make a point that I can learn from.
So that's something that I noticed from, like, there's something that blows my mind every time I look up a Shudder movie on just online. Like, for example, Hellbender is sitting at 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's like, it's not like they're putting out yet another, like, generic horror movie. Like, they're saying something. If it's, you're getting a 97%, that's not a whatever number. Yeah, people are loving it.
Yeah, I think in 2022, I think at one point towards the end of the year, the top 6 rated movies on Rotten Tomatoes were all on Shudder, which says a lot about this zeitgeist moment where people are just like digging horror, but that Shudder has the great taste to kind of give them to their viewers, and they're all great film. I mean, Shudder, of all the platforms we have, it's so easy to just go on there and within a minute be like, I'm watching that.
Yes.
All the other platforms, it could be fucking 20 minutes and I'm like, I don't have anything to watch. Boo-hoo. There's like 200 films here and I want nothing. I want to see nothing,
My
They
watch
also have like Joe Bob, who is a great movie critic who turns me on to movies I would never watch. But I'm watching Joe Bob and then he'll go through it and it's really fun to watch his whole thing.
He's great.
And then we'll be watching this movie that I just would never bring up. And by the end of it, I'm like, yeah, man, that's fucking awesome. And that's really cool. Celebrating.
My watch list on Shudder is ridiculous. And like I add a movie and then Nate will come back and be like, hey, check out this one. Like, damn it, I still have like 20 other ones I haven't seen.
Me too. Yeah.
It's crazy. But I think we talked about it a little earlier, but the renaissance of horror is great. I remember I got to see James Wan's *Malignant* in the theater and in a crowded theater, and to see a movie like that that's such a love letter to a different era of horror films, and to hear the audience reaction of like, what the hell did I just sit through? And then people are like, that's the fucking best movie I've ever seen. It's amazing that you can get like big budget things like that, and then like a guy like Robert Eggers, who is making these incredibly nuanced, beautiful horror films like The Witch and The Lighthouse, and it's just such a great time to be a horror lover. And that's why we're excited to talk to you guys, because you're adding to that scheme.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, so we're excited for your movie. And I do want to ask, because I know you guys probably get asked the same 15 questions and I try to make it a little different, but are there influences that really have like impacted you guys in the way you make films, or like whether that be like musicians that impact your art or filmmakers or whoever it may be?
I realized recently that I feel like we're influenced by German expressionism, and it's not like I can even say I have great knowledge of German expressionism, but films like one of my favorite films is F.W. Murnau's Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans.
I've never seen it.
And it's not even like a horror film. I mean, it's kind of based on someone who's trying to kill his wife, but it's just so beautiful. And there's something about the black and white and the also, I think at that time, like pre-World War I, and then during and post-World War I, that might still be included in that time, is just the subject matter and the creativity of how they would use, they would make things. They were very artistic with how they would present things. And so, and I think particularly in our latest film, Where the Devil Roams, I think the way we use black and white and spaces and darkness and light is really, we had a lot of fun with it. Hopefully people will enjoy it. And so I find myself, every time I see a film from that era, I'm like, oh my God, that's something that really speaks to me. And I think we subconsciously kind of do that in our films.
For me, my biggest influence artistically is definitely the hardcore bands of the 80s, and specifically the record company called SST Records, that basically was Black Flag. And and it's becoming more and more and more and more important to me the more we are in this world, because they, in the middle of the 80s, when big bands were getting signed for millions of dollars and they all had to go to fancy studios and they had to make big hair metal albums and they had to have big shows and big explosions and ride big buses and have big videos, Black Flag, they and all the other bands of that moment, they drove around in vans or cars and they played for kids like me. And there would be anywhere from 3 to maybe 300 people in these places. And it was, for me, wonderful art that still is exceptional. And they just broke the rules and they found people like me, and they didn't follow the rules. And that's what I think is important. I don't want to follow the rules. I want to continue being as much as possible like Black Flag.
Hey, side note, I'm seeing Gorilla Biscuit in September. So
there you go. Exactly. NYC hardcore.
No, something that you mentioned was really interesting on both. So for German expressionism, every time I hear German expressionism, I think of Nicolas Cage talking about the cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
I was just telling John I'm due to watch it. And,
and then with the hardcore scene, there's something to be said about both of those points that you made, because funny fact, I was listening to Youth of Today the other day, and I'm jamming to them, and then I'm like, it's crazy to me that these bands were around in the 80s, because people think 80s, they think hair metal, they think rock and roll, they think Motley Crue. They don't think of like the little DIY punk bands, in New York and LA. And then same thing with like German expressionism. When people think of like that era, they think, oh, Charlie Chaplin and very safe, art. But then like this subversive art has been happening for as long as we can remember. And it's just really cool to see that subversive art is starting to actually come out and be like, hey, we have been doing this for a long time. It's just people are finally catching up to it. So it's like that, like you guys have like DIY punk ethos of like, we're just going to get it done, and we're not going to wait for a fancy record label or a fancy, production company to hand us money. We're just going to get it done the way that these directors and, DIY punk bands did it in the 80s.
And what's super lucky for us is that there's an audience out there that enjoys it, like is having fun with us, and that's really cool. And it's great. It's very lucky.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, and I think that's what connects us so much to these films, because as horror fans, as punk fans, as fans of the DIY community, we understand that these things are important, but we also can have fun with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't know how this is going to sound, but I really do feel that, you can create a perfectly beautiful picture, but I really do believe that the soul and intention and joy and intensity behind an experience making a film seeps through the actual film to the viewer, more than a beautiful picture, just a straight up beautiful picture does. I just firmly believe in that, and I hope that we'll always kind of enjoy doing what we do, because hopefully everything we do will be a little different from the last, but it's really important that intention of creativity, seeps through.
There's also something,
and that's what I want to watch.
Yeah. There's also something super comforting about the like people grooving on some of the things that we're doing, because like I have never liked a lot of big budget music or big budget movies or big budget TV shows. They make me feel lonely. I watch them and I feel so lonely, because I'm like, holy shit, I just can't relate with this. Like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying there's no judgment to it. It just makes me feel lonely. And what's really nice is that we're finding that we're not alone in some of our thoughts, in the things that we want to think and we want to talk about. Sometimes they're unpleasant, they're unorthodox, sometimes they're taboo, but there's people out there that want to talk about them with a smile on their face. And that is definitely comforting.
I remember watching the movie Green Room, and it was from smile from ear to ear, because I'm like, I've been in that dingy venue. I've been in front of those people flipping me off, telling me to get off the stage. And it's so like, I get it, and I get what that character is going through, because I've been there.
100%. That was a really fun movie with a great arm snap.
Oh yeah.
The visual effects in that, just the gunshots still ring in my head when I think about that movie. They just feel so real.
Also dehumanizing Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, the fact that they got him to be in the movie. Also, the whole time I kept being like, looking at Toby like, they got this guy to be in this fucking movie. How did they do that?
That's so awesome. And I think the conversation you guys are having is cool, because I think that it all leads to connectiveness in art. And a lot of people, such as myself, the reason why Ray and I started doing this is because we both found a lot of joy in others' art. And even like in depressing art, like one of my favorite filmmakers is David Lynch. I love him. And because he is such like a against the system, I do whatever the fuck I want and only make what I want. But in a way that's like, it's always very personal, even in the most surreal way. And so it's cool to see directors like you guys out there, or like John, we just recently talked to, that are trying to make this personal art that can connect to others, but is still so fun and engaging to talk about. And so I love that whole conversation. And I think it needs to be had more often, because people get so serious about film criticism. It's like, enjoy yourself a little bit, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So
is it fun? It's the Paul McCartney test. Is it fun?
Exactly. So I have a question. Oh, go ahead, Ray.
No, I was gonna say, and that shows, because like in Hellbender, I was just gonna circle back to Hellbender real quick. You have this like seriousness about this movie and this very intimate, movie, and then you have a scene dedicated to the mom and the daughter puking blood on each other.
Yeah, fun is serious business. And that was definitely fun, especially because I didn't tell Zelda that I had put little pieces of rice inside the blood that I was puking on her. So she was flipping out because she felt the texture of the rice. And immediately thought of real maggots.
And she didn't put that past us.
That is wonderful. No, it's cool to see those fun moments. Another moment in that movie that seems like you guys had a blast is just that whole pool sequence with the drumming, and then just when it blows into chaos, it just looks like that would have been such a fun day to shoot.
It was a beautiful day. That was right at the beginning of COVID, and actually we all did have to stay separate. That we were all following the 8-foot or the 12-foot rule. If you look at it, where everybody really is, even in that circle, spread out the right moment. That was a really fun day with our neighbors. Those are I'm looking at the house right now that we got at. It was like, hey, can we use your pool? Oh yeah, sure. For one of your weird movies, yeah. And do you guys want to be in it?
Do you want to come down and yell about?
Oh yeah.
And then she was like, "Hey, you got us idiots." I'm like, "Sorry,
that part wasn't real."
Art.
I also, the casting of the park ranger was really good too. He was so great. He, like, all the side characters in the movie work so well.
Oh, that's
Did you
great.
recognize him from the Deeper You Dig? He's the Deeper You Dig. Yeah, he's one of our best friends.
He helped raise our kids.
Really
he was so good in it.
There was a moment in Hellbender I did want to ask you two about this, because I thought it was really cool. The concept that you put, that because at first she reveals that she's a vegetarian, and then you find out that she's a vegetarian because if she eats meat it'll trigger her powers. But I really love the concept that when she eats the living beings, she harnesses the power through their life and the fear of them dying. I love that concept. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That just goes right to witches. Witches were burned at the stake and persecuted, and anybody who's like a witch has been persecuted because people fear them. They fear their knowledge. They fear the fact that they don't mind living outside of society. The more somebody fears their power, the more they torture them and the more they kill them. So we just wanted to turn that around on its head and be like, okay, well, since fear is what builds up a witch's image, then we'll just suck. That's what they'll pull their power from.
That's fascinating.
Because we had lots of discussions. Well, how are these girls or how are these ladies going to be powered? Where's their power going to come from? And originally they were going to eat babies, right?
And we tried shooting that, and it was a total failure.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. I mean,
we got a Walmart baby that looked really real, and and we tried to eat it, and that didn't look so real. And it was just like, we tried, and then we were like, okay, eating the babies is not going to fly. And then we were like, what's scarier? What's scarier than eating babies? And Zelda was like, puppies. And it was like, ooh, that is terrible, but that's going to be really difficult.
Yeah.
And then we came up with this.
That's awesome.
It worked perfectly.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the puppies thing. That would have been a mess.
Well, I loved it. It was like, what's worse than babies? Zelda was like, puppies.
And we had a pretty cool scene too for it in the original script.
Yes.
Like, it was like, yeah, that's a good scene.
One day we're gonna eat some babies, and then and then like after the puppies, everyone will hate us, and that'll be it.
Well, the
Do that one
concept
last.
the concept to me is really cool because I believe it. If like I said, you sit down and tell me, oh, they feed from the fear of their victims. I'm like, oh yeah, that checks out. That makes sense.
It really does, because it works into what we all know about why witches are so powerful. Because the more people believe in their bullcrap, the more they fear those witches. In the past, like that's why the Puritans were scared of those ladies, because they saw that they fixed a fever, or they helped deliver a baby, or they did these things that were outside of the power structure of that society.
It works. It works perfectly in the film. And I wanted to ask you guys, because I just have fun doing this, but when we do interviews, I want to ask, I know you guys typically work together as a family, but between the both of you, are there any actors that you dream you could work with, that like if you could cast and it would be super easy and it would work out, that you'd love to have in your film?
I know who I want.
Go ahead. You might be saying the same person. Go ahead.
Joan Jett. I want Joan Jett.
Yeah, Joan.
Yeah.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yes.
Joan Jett with no makeup. Just get her to roll right out of bed and just whatever she looks like, roll up on the set, and she would be amazing.
She would be cool. I was gonna say we've been talking about Patton Oswalt.
Oh yeah.
Because he looks like he'd be so much fun. He's been super supportive of our films, and so and I just saw him in a great film called I Love My Dad.
It destroyed me.
Talked about that.
It was so good.
It's so good. And so and I like listen to his podcast, and I love his voice. So I would love to work with him. I think he would be fun. I think he's such a chameleon. So it'd be really cool to work with him.
That performance he gave in that movie was really transformative. I love that they used his comedic edge, but gave him a dark side that worked. So it reminded me of when Robin Williams did World's Greatest Dad, where he kind of it's a similar concept where Robin Williams' son kills himself, and he essentially like uses his son's suicide to fake these suicide notes to build a memoir for himself because he hated his kid. And so it takes a comedic actor like Robin Williams and puts him in this really deep, dark role, but that still has that funny edge to it. And I think what Patton was doing, I mean, it's like he's essentially catfishing his own child, and you're laughing, but at the same time, your heart's just breaking for that kid the entire movie.
Oh yeah. Now I got to look out for that film. I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, it's actually done by the comedian Bobcat Goldthwait, and it's really, it's really weird. If you get a chance to see it, honestly, it was a really subversive movie that I did not know what to expect, and it's phenomenal. It's towards the tail end of Robin Williams' career, which, like, watching him give that performance, knowing like the mental state he was in at the time, it's difficult to watch, but it's a brilliant performance. But I don't really have a lot more questions for you guys, but we really appreciate you guys coming on the podcast. This has been a great conversation. And I've been super excited to talk to you guys, because I just use any excuse I can to promote your movie anyway.
Yeah, thanks. This has been a great conversation. I hope we get to do it again.
And you guys have some fun insight that we don't hear often or at all in Hellbender. So that was really cool.
Oh, yeah, cool.
we love to do that, and that's why we did this anyway, because like we don't consider ourselves experts, but we just love movies, and we love shining a light on people who love making movies. And so that's what we hope to use this for, is to give people a platform to talk about their film. And we'd love to have you guys back on around the release of your new movie so that we can talk some more about it in detail when we've seen it.
We will be here, and we'll get Zelda to sit with us, and
that would be awesome.
Maybe we'll all be together. That'd be pretty cool.
That would be awesome. We would love it.
I always joke with people when we do these, because I'm like, well, you have Nate, who went to film school, and he's written some stuff and directed and edited some stuff, and then you have Ray, who watches movies.
But it works so well.
That's so important.
No, I was just gonna say, I did have one last question, because we don't get to talk to people that are like big music people. So, shout out some of your favorite artists.
That's I could go endless. Let's go with what I'm listening to. I'm gonna go with what I'm
Yeah.
listening to right now. Right now, what's turning us on and definitely influencing our band and our soundtracks is a band called Pigs.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
they're awesome. No, they're awesome. I have checked them out.
So we're way big into that right now. Who are you gonna throw
We've
out?
also been listening to Slow Mosa,
Yeah,
and I love this like all-female band out of Germany called Aptera.
yeah, they're
If you
great.
haven't heard them, they're so good. Aptera. They live in Berlin, but they're from like 4 different countries around the globe.
Mhm.
They are so fucking cool. And also, I love Big Business. I've been listening to them.
Okay.
They play often with the Melvins.
Yeah.
I really love them.
Pigs just came out with a new album. There's something I don't know.
And
Just
video, was that an old video or a new video?
the video I showed you called "Go West" was old, but that video was actually new. They have a new video called "Mr.
Bad
Medicine."
Oh.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. I've
Oh,
only
it's
checked out a couple of
hilarious.
other songs.
It's hilarious. It's so
Yeah.
great. It's like, oh my god, those guys.
Hey, I think the Melvins are coming through my town here pretty soon, so I'll have to.
I think they still play with Big Business. I think Big Business and the Melvins are all together right now.
Okay, I'll have to see if they're coming. I know the Melvins are coming with Spotlight, so I'll be pretty stoked to see that. I have to go check it out.
Where do you guys live?
I'm in Salt Lake City.
Oh, cool.
I'm in Columbus, Ohio, so
Oh.
straight in the middle of the world.
Well, I went to a college just for a year and then I quit. But I used to go to a hardcore club called Stashes in Columbus.
Oh, so I wonder if it's still there.
I don't know. I saw the Minutemen and the Circle Jerks and Sam
Nice.
and Black Flag, and there was for the bigger bands, like I saw X and James Brown at a place called oh shit, I just had the name of it in my head. Columbus, Ohio. What was the name of it was a nice club.
Was it like the Newport Music
Yeah,
Hall?
the Newport.
Yep.
Thank you. The
Yes.
Newport.
Yeah, I go to a lot of shows there. A lot of my youth was that we had these two clubs. One was called The Basement and one was called the Donato's Basement because it was below a Donato's Pizza. And so
that's great.
you could cram like 150 people in there. And I went to so many sweaty hardcore shows. And
Oh, that's great.
yeah,
So,
it was amazing.
The band that was playing, this was the 80s. So like I'm talking like 85 or 86 was when I was in Columbus going to hardcore shows. The big band from Columbus at that time was a band called Painful Discharge, but I don't know whether I don't think they really.
I don't know.
No, that's so cool that you've been through here. Yeah, everybody's like, where are you from? I'm like, Ohio. It's the joke of the internet now. But yeah, I've lived here my whole life, unfortunately.
I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. I liked not Newburgh, but right next to Newark,
Yeah.
Ohio. That we would also go to Newark. Yeah.
I went to I went to Ohio State and I went to the branch in Newark, Ohio for a while.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's a nice area. I really like it out here. And it reminds me of you guys' movie because it's very peaceful and serene outside. And that's most of my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Super beautiful right through there. I love the rolling hills of where you're at. That's great. And we love Utah. We camp a lot in Utah.
Oh, well, next time you're in town, let me know.
We will.
Yeah.
So do you guys want to let everybody know where they can watch your movies, how to find you guys, all that good stuff?
Sure. Well, our website is wonderwheelproductions.com. And then Instagram is adams.family.films. Twitter is adams_films.
And then we're on
just on
Facebook.
Facebook
Yeah.
individually.
And we love talking to people.
I appreciate you guys talking to me. It was so exciting that we could get this set up because I do think it was a really great conversation. And
Yes.
I'm looking forward to talking to you guys in the future.
Us too.
Likewise.
Thanks so much for inviting us.
Thank you
today.
so much.
Yes, thanks, guys. Well, that was the interview with John and Toby. I think it went well, Ray. Yeah.
I think it went better than well.
I agree. I feel like, and what you guys didn't see was after the interview, the long, elongated conversation that John had with us about the hardcore scene, which was wonderful.
Hey, he is one of my people. He's a straight edge hardcore dude. He's one of my people.
Yeah. So, like they said, I'm going to put all the links down below to where you can follow them, but go check out and support their films. Like, even if you get a Shudder subscription, watch Hellbender on Shudder, Their movie before that, The Deeper You Dig, is available on Tubi right now, so you can watch it completely free. And all their other movies are up on their website to rent through Amazon. They're just such wonderful people, and why wouldn't you want to support them? They put out great material.
And also the soundtrack for Hellbender, they have a few copies up in Mondo, which we should probably link that too, so people can check that out.
Yes, definitely pick that up, because I don't think Ray and I can say enough how incredible the music to that film is.
Yes, for sure. So yeah, no, I was just gonna stress what you're saying, to go check out the film, check out the soundtrack. I mean, you can stream the soundtrack on Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you listen to music, because those are songs that they wrote too. So it's not like the soundtrack is removed from the film. Like, they worked on those songs, and that's their band. So, support that as well.
And I thought that was really cool that they mentioned the possibility of Zelda and Lulu coming on the next episode, to be able to talk to all four of them and hear like the collective consciousness behind every project, like, just be so great. So John, Toby, we really appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking that time. And yeah, now I just want to go jump on and watch all their movies now. Like I've seen 2 of them, and now I want to watch the rest of their catalog, because it's every single review. Because I thought it was cool that John was talking about even reading their own reviews, but every review on Letterboxd, no matter what the review is, everyone says that you can just see the passion in the screenplay. And I think that that's true even just to Hellbender. Like, you can tell that it's very personal.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like there is this sense of like intimacy in the story, that now I have a greater appreciation for the story, because I got to hear like the work that they put into it, and all the awesome things that they got to work with, and also the awesome family structure that they have, and how it's a very democratic style of filmmaking. It makes me appreciate their work even more now.
100%, I agree with you. So yeah, so go check out all their material. Give them a follow on Instagram and Twitter. It's all going to be down below in the description, or on the podcast page, wherever you guys are listening. So Ray, without further ado, on to our favorite segment we get to do when the podcast is visual, which is soundtrack of the week. Soundtrack of the week. So Ray, what soundtrack do you have to bring forth to us this week?
So I bring the soundtrack. This was totally not planned at all. I totally didn't plan for this to happen, but I thought I'd do Argento's Suspiria.
Goblin, baby.
Goblin, but look at this. Look at this pretty little thing. I mean, it's not just great music, but I mean, look at this thing.
God, that's gorgeous. I still need to pick that up, because the only from the original Suspiria, the only one that I own is the 7-inch that has the theme. Okay. But I need to get a copy of that. Is that Mondo or Waxwork?
Mondo Death Bolts.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love the cover so much.
And then you have this, and then the crazy like.
Oh my God, I love that. So, and if you want to talk about like one of the most iconic horror scores of all time.
Oh yeah, and for those that couldn't see, the variant is like a blue with white splatter. And yeah, I figure, you know what? I'm gonna honor our boy Nate that's rocking his Suspiria.
Which?
Now, Nate, for this totally unplanned segment, what is your score?
So what I thought would be great is, since we were talking about witches, that I could talk about Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria, the Tom York score, baby. And this has it's not as fancy on the inside as yours, but it has all these hands. But I will show everybody out there, it's a really pretty pink pressing.
Ooh.
And it's so funny because, like, for a score to a film, all of the instrumental tracks are very like haunting and disturbing, but like all the other tracks where Tom York has vocals, it's like it's a Radiohead B-side. But it fits perfectly into the movie. I don't want to take away from that, but it's a beautiful score. I find myself listening to this over and over again. But what I love is thinking about the Suspiria score you showed and how drastically different they are. It's really cool.
But that's what makes, and even the movies are very tonally different, so it makes sense.
Exactly. But yeah, we thought with the theme of witches from Hellbender that it would be perfect to Double Trouble Suspiria. I'm surprised that it wasn't a Double Trouble the Witch score. We both grabbed our witch scores, us Mark Corvin boys out here. So yeah, that was our soundtrack of the week. And so Ray and I wanted to announce quickly, there will not be a new episode next week because I'm traveling to Minnesota and I don't have any time to edit a podcast. So for 2 weeks, you can enjoy and revisit this episode where we have this wonderful conversation. But we are going to have an episode the following week. And Ray, would you like to introduce the concept that we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, so we're in March, and March is a very special month where we celebrate women and we celebrate the great things that women have done for us. You know, if you don't believe women have done something, well, a woman probably created you in her womb at the very least.
Unless you were made in a factory.
Yeah, you know, but that's for a different month.
Yes.
But no, but in all seriousness, like we want to celebrate, just like we had a chance to celebrate African Americans and just Black people in general in the film industry. Now we want to celebrate women and the amazing things that women have done for us. Obviously, neither of us identify as women, but that doesn't mean we don't want to take the time to appreciate and shout out some phenomenal filmmakers, actresses, composers that have defined and continue to redefine the filmmaking industry.
So get ready for an entire episode on Anya Taylor-Joy.
I like to think that there's other talented women.
Well, there are, but I just thought that was a funny joke. Okay. Ray and I's obsession with Anya Taylor-Joy knows no bounds. Okay.
Wow, Nate. Wow, you have me so pegged.
I'm 100% I do. So we appreciate you guys for listening. As I said, I'm going to beat it to death, but all John and Toby's stuff is going to be linked down below to where you can watch all their films. Check it all out.
All of it in music, soundtrack, films, and just, you know what? I'm just going to say it. Get yourself a Shudder subscription because odds are we might have other Shudder filmmakers come in soon.
Yeah. So if you're out there, CEO of Shudder, we'll read as many fucking ads as you want us to. We will promote the hell out of your streaming service because guess what? We aren't even paid right now, and I'm in a pair of Shudder sweatpants. I am.
Fantastic.
I just, it's on the leg. The shutter's on the leg. I kind of wish it was on the ass.
Oh, for sure.
Pop that shutter. Yeah.
Do you make the D's like clap?
Yeah, I do with my non-existent ass. No, so Shudder, Ray and I talk about it all the time, but like a lot of these directors we've been interviewing, their movies are on Shudder. So at least do a trial. They're like always running free trials. Test it out. I'm going to tell you, like, I did a free trial of Shudder, and within 2 days, I was like, nah, I'm paying for it. Like, I don't even need to finish the trial. I want it so bad.
Well, when I signed up for Shudder, I was like, I'm just going to sign up for the year.
I did the exact same thing because they just continuously update the catalog with so many amazing things. So definitely check out Shudder. As always, you can follow us at the Film Monsters Podcast, where we will post updates about the episodes and things we have coming up in the future. And you can follow Ray and I at Analog C and My Exit Unfair for what you can see behind Ray, his entirety of his record collection. Mine's not behind me because it's counterintuitive to recording, but yeah, so follow us. We're excited. We've got a lot of cool shit planned for this year. I can't believe we've already had 2 amazing interviews in 2023.
40 episodes in too.
Yeah, I know, right? We've been chugging along. I can't wait. Ray, we're going to have to do something special for the year anniversary episode.
Yeah, we do.
So have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.